We've got less than a week until our next Apple event, but now is the real weird time of year when we've got two Apple events coming up that Apple has confirmed. They've sent out the invites and everything for, but we don't know entirely what each one is going to be about. So in today's video, we're talking about things that you should expect for June versus things you should expect next week. Let's begin. The reason I'm trying hard not to get too hyped or too excited is because if Apple does kind of what they did last year, they might just completely reserve quadruple UDC for software, which is not something many people always get excited for because pretty much at any given moment throughout the year, people are waiting for a big hardware launch and they've got this big laundry list of things that they want to come out from Apple via hardware, and they think that at every Apple event, that's going to be the event they announce Apple Glasses, AirPower is back from the dead, and they're going to launch a new Apple TV and a new game console and a new iPod Touch and a game controller. All of your craziest, wildest claims can all be built up in your mind right before these events, and it's very easy for us to not be realistic about this. But yeah, last year, leading into quadruple UDC, we could have swore there was going to be hardware of some kind. I even personally had a hard time believing that Apple would announce they're transitioning to their own silicon and they're not going to use Intel anymore, but at the same time not really announce any hardware that people could buy. They just had that little Mac Mini dev kit, but aside from that, it was pretty much just a software event. They talked about iOS, iPadOS, macOS, tvOS, watchOS, the whole ecosystem, and that's still exciting because it's something that, hey, we don't have to buy. We can actually just enjoy across all of our different Apple products. There's features we can look forward to, and we all know we're going to get them eventually. It's not like, should I buy the new iPad or not? Pretty much everybody's just going to start updating to the latest version of whatever they can, as long as it's not too buggy or bumpy. But hopefully that's what the dev beta and public beta can iron out. If they do decide to make the developer conference this year similar to last year's, that means potentially we could actually get a ton of hardware at this April 20th event. Personally, that gets me very, very excited because there's a lot of speculation on what hardware we are getting next week. iPad Pros, I am very close to saying the term certain we're getting those. It just feels like every single news outlet is all saying, yep, mini LED, iPad Pro, this is the event, this is when the new iPad Pros are coming. I don't think an iPad 9 would make sense at this event because iPad 8 still has new branding there. iPad Air just shipped last October, so that's not getting refreshed. There's a chance we could see an updated iPad mini with slightly thinner bezels and a larger screen. There's a lot of those reports going around, but what gets me really, really excited is people speculating on the invite image looking kind of like a tweaked version of the Hello that debuted on the Mac, and some people are saying to expect some type of Mac hardware at this event. Anything related to the Mac, honestly, gets me kind of excited because I have a hard time believing if they did more Macs, they would just put more M1 chips in more things, right? Like, if they're going to have another event for Apple Silicon in the Mac, they most likely are going to want to ship the next generation, the M1X chip or the M2 chip, and they would want to ship it in somewhat new hardware. Even if there's no redesign, even if next week we just get an updated 13-inch MacBook Pro that has 4 USB-C ports but now supports a faster version of Apple Silicon, that would honestly be really exciting to me, even if it wasn't the redesigned or the mini LED MacBook Pro with the legacy ports that so many people are hoping for. Even if it's just the debut of a new chip, that means new speed tests, more comparisons, and we can actually get a grip on how insanely good Apple Silicon can be once scaled up to more professional grade workflows and not just on entry-level Macs like the MacBook Air and Mac Mini. Obviously, wild card situation that I would be very, very hopeful for, partly because we're seeing a lot of storage configurations for the iMac go away. The 21.5-inch iMac, they're removing options left and right. The 27-inch iMac, on the base model at least, only has one 256 gig SSD option. In the past, I believe it used to have more than that. Now it's just the one. Little Easter eggs, little clues like that are getting people excited that perhaps the Apple Silicon iMac could get unveiled next week. But at the same time, yeah, I gotta admit, it doesn't really make sense that after all of these years of the iMac having the exact same design and not being updated, they would just simply drop it at a spring event, which normally are not very eventful in the first place. Makes way more sense in my mind that they would want to delay that type of unveiling until June, which is kind of a bigger deal. There's probably a lot more people watching, and it's probably a bit more exciting to unveil and show to the world what the future of iMacs are going to look like. It all makes perfect sense to me, but this hype period is what I live for, okay? Counting down the days until we have an Apple event and knowing that there's going to be new stuff and knowing that April is most likely going to be all about new hardware hardware that we haven't seen before. That gets me pumped, and that most certainly makes me hope we see an Apple Silicon iMac, even if it's just a smaller one. Just the 24-inch iMac gets a boost. I would love to test that and see how fast M1X chip can be, and also the design language they're going forward with the iMac. I'm probably thinking about this way too much and getting so excited that I'm gonna let myself down, but hey, I'm gonna reserve that disappointment for next week and save all of this hype and anticipation for now, okay? And I'm just gonna live off of it. It also would potentially make sense for them to launch AirPods 3, which we've seen so many leaked images of. It's almost kind of shocking it hasn't launched yet, but weird thing is, Apple doesn't like doing AirPods launches at events. For whatever reason, in the past 4 years, they've pretty much always done AirPods via site refresh, whether it's AirPods Pro with active noise cancellation or AirPods Max. They don't want to talk about it during events, which maybe April could be the first time they actually break that tradition and unveil the new generation AirPods, hopefully at a cheaper price, but with great features, better sound quality. A lot of people have been waiting for AirPods for a long time, so I'm hoping that can be kind of a major focus on this event, probably because I just don't care that much about AirTags. I know lots and lots of people are still anticipating AirTags, and I'm also still seeing a lot of you say you don't think AirTags are real or happening in the first place, and I don't think that suspicion is very unrealistic, because I myself have been wondering why they would open up the Find My network and start including AirTag competitors on their website that they're endorsing, only for them to launch AirTags a few weeks later. Like, it sounds very bizarre to me, which is why if Apple decided to scrap AirTags and never release them, I wouldn't be that mad, because I wasn't planning on getting them anyway. But AirPods 3, I think, is a bit more applicable, and wearables as a whole are a very large market, so I feel like that would be more exciting than AirTags, even though we already have AirPods, and I know AirTags is kind of a new category. It's just not one I care much about. iPad Pro, though, that's the one thing that I have immense focus on going through with this event, because I think they really need to prove, aside from all the benefits of mini LED, which I'm sure are there, as to why an A14X chip can make a big difference between the A12Z chip. If it's just the same old iPad OS and there's no real software exclusives or anything that takes advantage of that extra performance, I feel like it's just going to be really, really overkill, and mostly Apple just bragging about how great mini LED is, which I'm sure could easily fit a 30-minute section of the event, but I still think they need to showcase some new software capabilities that the A14X chip allows for that probably wasn't doable before on the A12Z. I would even go as far as to say be careful about a price hike. I'm not saying it's likely. It wouldn't shock me at all if the iPad Pro 12.9-inch is still $1,000, but now with mini LED, though, just keep in mind, every iPad since the first one has still been an LCD display, and we have gotten bigger iPads that got more expensive, or laminated iPads that got more expensive. This is the first time they're making that jump to mini LED on any Apple product, let alone an iPad. I think it might be reasonable to somewhat expect a price jump. Maybe it's going to be $1,100 or $1,200. I know that sounds crazy, but you gotta remember, there's a lot of times I've tried to warn people about these price jumps, and then I end up being somewhat accurate about them, especially when it came to the keyboard case or MagSafe Duo or the iPhone 12, which a lot of people were convinced that it would not be more expensive, and then it ended up being more expensive. I don't expect the Face ID cameras to be moved. I saw some people asking about that, but more than likely, because this is a spring event, there won't be everything we talked about in today's video. In fact, if it's anything like the September, October, and November events, there really is only going to be two main things, and I expect the iPad to almost certainly be one of them. I'm just hoping that second thing would be something like AirPods, or of course Apple Silicon Max. That would be far more exciting to me than AirTags, but knowing my luck, we're probably just going to get AirTags, and they'll be exactly how we thought they would look, and probably about 50% more expensive than you were planning on them being. Let me know what you guys are most excited for at this event, or what hardware you think we could get at the Quadruple UDC event. Do you think we'll get some hardware next week and some hardware in June, or do you think we're going to get all hardware next week and no hardware in June? This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you guys in the next one.